Ambassador Chen Wei stood in the great chamber of the Galactic Council and felt very small. The room was enormous, built to hold beings from 100 different worlds. Above her head, the ceiling showed the stars themselves moving in real time. Around her, the representatives of the galaxy's most powerful species watched her with their various eyes, sensors, and consciousness fields. Chen took a deep breath and activated her presentation. A hologram of Earth's newest warship appeared in the center of the chamber, rotating slowly. The UNS Indomitable was a beast of a ship, all sharp angles and thick armor plating. It looked nothing like the elegant vessels the other species flew. "Honorable members of the Council," Chen began, her voice steady despite her nervousness. "Humanity is proud to present our fleet designs for your approval. We have worked for 50 years to develop ships that can defend our worlds and contribute to galactic security." A sound like crystal chimes filled the room. It was laughter. The Varathian representative, a being that looked like a living diamond the size of a small car, spoke through its translator device. "This is what humans call a warship?" The Varathian's voice dripped with amusement. "It appears to be little more than metal plates welded around primitive engines. Where are the energy shields? Where are the plasma cannons?" Chen's jaw tightened, but she continued. "Our ships use kinetic weapons and physical armor. We have found this combination to be very effective in our simulations and—" "Simulations," another voice interrupted. "This one belonged to Illumini, a being made of pure energy contained in a floating crystalline sphere. Child species, we have fought wars for thousands of years while your ancestors were still climbing trees. We know what works in space combat. This does not." A deep rumbling sound came from the Krell section. The Krell were ancient, huge beings that looked like six-legged crocodiles covered in stone-like scales. Their representative spoke slowly, as if explaining something to a very young child. "Physical armor is obsolete. It adds mass, which requires more fuel. It cannot stop modern weapons. Your ships will be slow, clumsy targets. They will die quickly in any real battle." Chen tried again to explain. "Our design philosophy is based on redundancy and survivability. Each ship has multiple backup systems. The armor is layered with—" "Enough!" The Varathian cut her off with a wave of one crystalline limb. "The Military Assessment Committee has reviewed your designs. We find them amusing but unacceptable for any serious defensive role. Humanity will be assigned to Frontier Defense Tier 5. Tier 5, the lowest rating." Chen felt her cheeks burn with shame. Tier 5 meant humanity would guard the empty spaces between real civilizations. They would watch over worthless systems that nobody else wanted. "You will be given jurisdiction over the Outer Rim territories," the Krell continued. 17 systems, mostly mineral extraction sites and uninhabited worlds. "This assignment matches your current capabilities," the Lumini added almost kindly. "Do not feel bad, Ambassador. All young species start at the bottom. In a few thousand years, when you have learned proper engineering, you may advance. For now, your flying coffins wrapped in scrap metal will be adequate for the quiet frontier." The council chamber filled with the sounds of alien laughter again. Chen stood frozen, the hologram of the Indomitable still rotating above her, ignored and mocked by the greatest powers in the galaxy. The meeting ended quickly after that. Chen walked out of the chamber in a daze, followed by her small team of human advisors. Nobody spoke until they reached the privacy of their shuttle. "Flying coffins," muttered Commander Jackson, Chen's military liaison. "Scrap metal. Did you hear them?" "Everyone in the galaxy heard them," Chen said quietly. She sat down heavily in her seat and stared out the window at the Council's orbital station. Ships from a dozen species flew past, all of them sleek and beautiful, covered in glowing energy fields. "Ma'am, our ships are good," Jackson said. "I know they don't look fancy, but the engineering is solid." "We tested everything." "I know," Chen replied. "But it doesn't matter what we know. It matters what they think. And they think we're primitives playing with toys." The shuttle began its journey back to the human embassy station. Chen pulled up the recording of the meeting and watched it again, studying the aliens' reactions. Something bothered her, something she couldn't quite identify. She watched the Varathians' mocking laughter. She watched the Lumini's condescending smile. She watched the Krell's dismissive gesture. Then she noticed it. Not one of them had asked why. They had criticized the human designs, called them primitive and obsolete, but nobody had asked the obvious question. Why did humans build ships this way? Chen had prepared detailed explanations. She had historical data, tactical analysis, and mathematical models. She could have shown them the reasoning behind every choice, every plate of armor, every redundant system, but they never asked. They just assumed humans were too stupid to know better. "Commander," Chen said slowly, "they didn't ask us to explain." "Ma'am," the council. "They never asked why we designed the ships like this. They just assumed we didn't know any better." Chen felt a strange calmness settle over her. "They think we're idiots who accidentally built warships wrong." Jackson frowned. "And we're not?" "No, Commander. We're not." Chen smiled for the first time since entering the council chamber. "We built exactly what we meant to build. They just don't understand what they're looking at." 3 days later, Chen stood on the observation deck of the human embassy station and watched the Earth fleet depart for the outer rim. 40 ships, all of them similar in design to the Indomitable. Ugly, blocky, and covered in thick armor, Captain Sarah Okonkwo commanded the Indomitable. Chen had met her briefly before the deployment. Okonkwo was tall, strong, and had cold eyes that had seen too much death. She was one of the survivors from the colony raids 5 years ago, before humanity joined the council. Raiders had attacked 3 human settlements in the frontier. Okonkwo had been a junior officer then, and she had watched friends die because their civilian transport couldn't fight back. "We won't let it happen again," Okonkwo had told Chen. "Let them laugh at our ships. When the time comes, these ugly bastards will do their job." Now those ships were disappearing into the darkness, heading toward the systems nobody else wanted to defend. Chen watched them go and felt a strange mixture of shame and pride. The galaxy thought humans were fools. Maybe that was okay. Maybe it was even an advantage. Chen turned away from the window and headed back to her office. She had reports to file, assignments to coordinate, and 100 other diplomatic tasks. But in the back of her mind, one thought kept repeating. They never asked why. They never asked why we built our ships to take damage instead of avoid it. Why we valued armor over shields. Why we made everything redundant and over-engineered. They never asked, so they didn't know. And maybe, Chen thought, that was humanity's first real advantage in this new galactic arena. Somewhere in the outer rim, in systems the Council considered worthless, Captain Okonkwo and her fleet were about to show the galaxy what human engineering could really do, but that would come later. For now, the humans were patient. They had been patient for 50 years, ever since first contact. They could wait a little longer. The galaxy thought it knew everything. Humanity was about to teach them otherwise. 6 months had passed since humanity took control of the Outer Rim territories. Captain Sarah Okonkwo sat in the command chair of the UNS Indomitable and reviewed the daily reports. Mining operations were running smoothly. The colonies were growing. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal from New Perth Colony," Lieutenant Morrison announced from the communication station. "They're under attack." "Signal just cut off." Okonkwo felt ice form in her stomach. "How long ago?" 40 seconds, ma'am. "I'm trying to re-establish contact, but there's nothing. The entire comm network in that sector just went dark. Sound general quarters. Get me Admiral Chen on the line. Navigation, plot a jump to New Perth, maximum speed." The bridge exploded into controlled chaos. Alarms blared. The crew rushed to their battle stations. Within 3 minutes, the Indomitable and its battle group of 12 ships were jumping toward the attacked colony. It took them 4 hours to arrive. 4 hours of tense waiting, of checking weapon systems, of preparing for what they might find. When they dropped out of faster-than-light travel, Okonkwo knew immediately that they were too late. New Perth was burning. The colony's orbital stations were shattered ruins. On the planet's surface, fires marked where the settlements had been. And surrounding the devastation was a fleet of ships Okonkwo didn't recognize. "Unknown vessels, this is Captain Okonkwo of the United Nations ship Indomitable. You are in human-controlled space. Identify yourselves immediately." The response came quickly. "Humans, we are the Jarek Dominion. We do not recognize the Council's authority in this region. These systems are now ours. Leave or be destroyed." Okonkwo pulled up the tactical display. 23 enemy ships, all of them sleek and covered in shimmering energy shields. They looked like every other advanced species warships. Beautiful, elegant, deadly. "Captain, I'm reading plasma weapon signatures and quantum disruptor arrays," Morrison reported. "These are top-of-the-line military vessels. Their shields are at maximum strength. Lieutenant, relay to the fleet. Attack pattern Delta. All ships switch to armor configuration. Divert power from non-essential systems to engines and weapons. Captain? Morrison looked confused. We're engaging? We're engaging. They just killed 10,000 civilians. We're going to make them pay for it. The human fleet moved forward. Their formation was nothing like standard galactic tactics. Instead of spreading out to create multiple firing angles, the human ships clustered together, forming a wedge with the Indomitable at the tip. The Jarek fleet opened fire first. Brilliant beams of plasma energy lanced across the space between the two forces. They hit the human ships dead on, and the bridge crew of the Indomitable felt the impact shake the vessel. Shields holding it. Wait, we don't have shields, Morrison said, then checked his readings again. Armor is absorbing the hits. Outer plating is heating up, but structural integrity is at 98%. Return fire. All railguns full salvo. Target their lead ships. The Indomitable shuddered as its magnetic accelerator cannons fired. Solid metal slugs, each one weighing several tons, shot out at a significant fraction of the speed of light. They slammed into the Jarek shields and bounced off, deflected by the energy barriers. The Jarek commander's voice came over the comm channel, laughing. Kinetic weapons? Against shields? You humans are as primitive as the Council said. We will enjoy adding your territory to the Dominion. But Okonkwo was smiling. Keep firing. All ships maintain formation. Close the distance. I want us within 5 kilometers of their formation. Captain, that's suicide range for energy weapons. Morrison protested. Trust me, Lieutenant. Do it. The human ships accelerated, taking hit after hit from the Jarek plasma cannons. The armor glowed red-hot in places, and several ships reported hull breaches in non-critical sections. But they kept coming, closing the distance with frightening speed. At 6 kilometers, Okonkwo gave the next order. Launch drone swarms. All tubes fire missiles. Don't stop firing until our magazines are empty. The sides of every human ship opened up. Thousands of small drones poured out, each one autonomous and equipped with explosive charges. Behind them came waves of missiles, hundreds of them, all aimed at the Jarek fleet. The Jarek point defense systems opened fire, trying to shoot down the incoming swarm. They destroyed dozens of drones, then hundreds, but there were thousands, and they kept coming. Their point defense can't track everything, Morrison reported, his voice excited now. The drones are overwhelming their targeting systems. The first drones reached the Jarek ships. They didn't try to penetrate the shields. Instead, they detonated against them, creating massive bursts of electromagnetic interference. The shields flickered. Some of them dropped for just a moment. That was when the missiles arrived. They had been programmed to wait for exactly this moment, when the shields were weak or down. They slammed into the Jarek hulls and the elegant alien ship started to explode. 3 enemy ships destroyed, Morrison announced. 4 more showing critical damage. Captain, it's working. All ships advanced to ramming distance. Target the biggest one. The human fleet pushed forward into the chaos of the battle. The Jarek were trying to retreat now, but they had designed their ships for long-range combat. The humans had designed theirs for close-in brawling. At 2 kilometers, the Indomitable's railguns became truly effective. At this range, even shields couldn't fully deflect the massive kinetic impact. The Jarek flagship took a direct hit to its engines and its shields collapsed entirely. All ahead full, Okonkwo ordered calmly. Brace for impact. The bridge crew grabbed their restraints. The Indomitable accelerated directly at the Jarek flagship, its reinforced prow pointed at the enemy ship's center of mass. Captain, we're going to hit them, Morrison shouted. That's the idea, Lieutenant. The collision was devastating. The Indomitable's armored nose punched through the Jarek ship's hull like a spear through paper. The human ship's speed and mass carried it deep into the enemy vessel, tearing through deck after deck. Metal screamed. Systems exploded. The Jarek flagship broke in half. The Indomitable emerged from the other side, trailing debris and with its forward armor completely destroyed. But it was still flying. Still fighting. Damage report. Okonkwo called out. Forward sections are gone. We've lost compartments 1 through 8. But the bulkhead's sealed. Engines are still good. Weapons still good. We can fight. Around them, the rest of the human fleet was wreaking havoc on the Jarek formation. The aliens had never trained for this kind of brutal close-range combat. Their ships were designed to fight at a distance with precise energy weapons, not to brawl in the midst of explosions and collisions. Another human ship, the UNS Defiant, latched onto a Jarek destroyer with magnetic grapples and began pounding it with point-blank railgun fire. The Zarek ship's shields were useless at this distance, and its armor was never designed to withstand this kind of punishment. The battle lasted another hour. When it was over, the Zarek fleet was destroyed. 18 of their 23 ships were gone, and the remaining 5 were fleeing at maximum speed. The human fleet had lost 2 ships completely and 3 more were heavily damaged, but they had won. Okonkwo stood up from her command chair and surveyed the bridge. Her crew looked exhausted, shocked, and proud all at once. "Send a message to Fleet Command," she said quietly. "Tell them the Zarek have been repelled. Tell them New Perth has been avenged. And tell them—" She paused, looking at the tactical display showing the fleeing Zarek ships. "Tell them that human warships just proved they're not flying coffins. They're battle tanks that fight like submarines, and the galaxy better start paying attention." Morrison was already typing the message when another alert sounded. "Captain, we're receiving distress calls from New Johannesburg and Kepler Station. They're under attack too." Okonkwo sat back down. "How many ships do we have that can still fight?" 10, ma'am. "The others need repairs. Then we take 10. Navigator, plot a course. Communications, send word to all human forces in the sector. The Zarek want a war. We're going to give them one they'll never forget." The battered human fleet turned and jumped back into faster-than-light travel, heading toward the next battle. Behind them, the wreckage of the Zarek fleet floated in the darkness, a silent testimony to what happened when someone underestimated humanity's ugly, brutal warships. In the council chambers, sensors had picked up the battle. The recordings were already being analyzed, and across the galaxy, the species that had mocked humanity's designs were beginning to ask themselves an uncomfortable question. What if they had been wrong? The Galactic Council chamber was silent as the battle recording played for the 3rd time. Every representative watched as the human fleet, those ugly blocks of metal they had mocked 6 months ago, tore through the Zarek forces with brutal efficiency. The Varathian representative, who had laughed so hard at humanity's designs, was no longer laughing. Its crystalline body pulsed with confused colors as it watched the indomitable ram straight through the Zarek flagship. "This cannot be correct," the Varathian said. "These readings must be wrong. Kinetic weapons cannot penetrate modern shields. Physical armor cannot withstand plasma fire at that intensity. Ships cannot survive collision with other ships. This violates every principle of modern space warfare." A Lumini tactical analyst floated forward, its energy form flickering with distress. "The readings are correct. I have verified them personally against our own sensor records. The humans did exactly what the recordings show. They flew directly into close combat range, absorbed damage that should have destroyed them, and physically battered the Zarek fleet into submission." "But how?" another council member asked. "The Zarek are not weak. Their fleet was equipped with standard military technology. Their commanders were trained. How did primitive human ships defeat them?" The Lumini analyst dimmed slightly, which was its species equivalent of embarrassment. "I decided to investigate this question. With the Council's permission, I accessed the human information networks and studied their military history. A holographic display activated, showing images from Earth's past, battlefields, warships, weapons of every kind. Humans have been fighting wars for their entire recorded history," the analyst explained. "Not occasional conflicts like most species. Constant warfare. For 10,000 years of their civilization, they have been perfecting the art of killing each other." Images flashed across the screen. Ancient humans with spears, medieval knights in armor, warships from Earth's oceans, tanks rolling across battlefields, aircraft dogfighting in the sky. They have fought on land, in their oceans, in their atmosphere, and now in space. Every environment they have encountered, they have learned to weaponize. Every technology they have developed, they have turned into a weapon. The Krell War Minister, an ancient being who had seen countless battles, leaned forward with interest. "Show me their naval warfare, their ocean battles," the analyst complied. Images of Earth's battleships appeared. Massive vessels covered in thick armor plating, bristling with guns. The council watched as these ships pounded each other with cannon fire, absorbing terrible damage but remaining afloat. "This is their model," the Krell said slowly. "They did not design space warships. They designed space versions of these ocean battleships, ships meant to take damage and keep fighting." "Correct," the analyst confirmed. "Human military doctrine is based on concepts they call redundancy, survivability, and attrition. Their ships have multiple backup systems for every critical function. Their armor is layered to dissipate damage. Their crews are trained to keep fighting even when half the ship is destroyed. The Varathian made a sound like breaking glass. This is barbaric. Civilized species do not design ships to be wounded. We design them to avoid being hit at all. Yes, the analyst agreed. And that is why the Jarek lost. They designed their ships for the warfare they knew. Elegant long-range exchanges between shielded vessels. When the humans forced them into close combat, into a brutal brawl where armor mattered more than shields, the Jarek had no doctrine for that kind of fight. A new voice entered the conversation. It was the Krell War Minister, and its tone was grave. The humans did not build warships. They built siege engines. The chamber fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. In our ancient history, the Krell continued, before we became civilized, we fought as the humans fight now. Total warfare. No rules, no elegance. Just survival. Our ships were built to absorb damage because we expected to be damaged. Our weapons were designed to batter through defenses because we expected defenses to be strong. The War Minister gestured at the human ships on the display. These vessels are not primitive. They are specialized for a type of warfare this galaxy has not seen in thousands of years. They are anachronisms, weapons from a more violent age, and that makes them incredibly dangerous. Ambassador Chen had been invited to this emergency session. She sat quietly in the human section, listening to the council finally understand what they had dismissed so casually before. Ambassador Chen, the council speaker addressed her. You tried to explain your ship designs to us 6 months ago. We did not listen. Will you explain now? Chen stood up, feeling every eye, sensor, and consciousness field focus on her. This time she was not nervous. Honorable council members, I will be happy to explain. But first, I want to show you something. She activated her own display. Footage began to play, not from a recent battle but from Earth's history. The council watched in stunned silence as human soldiers fought in trenches, as bombers destroyed cities, as submarines hunted each other in the depths of Earth's oceans. This is the Second World War, Chen explained. One conflict on one planet that killed 70 million people. 70 million. That is more than the total population of some council species. The footage continued. More wars, Korea, Vietnam, the Middle Eastern conflicts, each one brutal and unforgiving. We did not want to be good at war, Chen said quietly. We became good at it because we had to. Because for thousands of years, if you were not good at warfare on Earth, your people died. Your civilization ended. Being second best meant extinction. She showed them footage of human naval battles from the world wars. Battleships slugging it out at close range, absorbing dozens of hits and still fighting. This is why we build our ships the way we do. Not because we are primitive. Not because we do not understand shields and energy weapons. But because our experience taught us that in real combat, ships get hit, systems fail. Perfect defense is a fantasy. So we build ships that can take the hits and keep fighting. The Lumini analyst spoke up. I noticed something else in my research. Human militaries have a concept called combined arms. They never rely on a single type of weapon or tactic. They always use multiple approaches simultaneously. Correct, Chen confirmed. In the battle at New Perth, our ships used armor to close the distance, drones to overwhelm point defenses, missiles to exploit shield weaknesses, and kinetic weapons to deliver final blows. We also used ramming as a tactic, which I understand shocked many of you. Ramming is not a tactic, the Varathian protested. It is desperation. It destroys your own ship. It destroys part of your own ship, Chen corrected. If your ship is designed with compartmentalization and redundancy, you can sacrifice the forward sections to destroy an enemy vessel and still have a functioning warship. The Indomitable lost its first 8 compartments in that ramming attack. It still had 42 compartments that were fully operational. The council chamber buzzed with shocked conversations. The idea of deliberately designing a ship to lose parts of itself and keep fighting was alien to species that built their vessels to be perfect, complete systems. The Krell War Minister spoke again. I have a question, Ambassador Chen, an important one. The Zarek fleet that attacked you was powerful, but it was not the full Dominion military. What will you do when they return with more ships? Your fleet suffered damage. Several of your vessels were destroyed. Chen met the ancient being's gaze steadily. We will fight them again, and we will win again, because while our ships were damaged, our shipyards are already building more. And because we have something the Zarek do not have. And what is that? Experience in losing. Every human military commander studies defeat as much as victory. We know what it feels like to lose battles. We know how to adapt, how to learn. The Jarak just lost for the first time in their recent history. They do not know what to do with that experience. We do. The council speaker rose, its gesture calling for attention. This council must make a decision. The Jarak incursion into human space is technically an internal matter within the Outer Rim territories. However, the implications are significant. We must vote on whether to revise humanity's threat assessment. I vote to upgrade them to Tier 3, the Lumini representative said immediately. At minimum, Tier 2, the Krell War Minister rumbled. These ships and tactics are more dangerous than we realized. One by one, the council members voted. When it was done, humanity had been moved from Tier 5 to Tier 2, the second highest military classification in the galaxy. The Varathian representative, who had mocked humanity so thoroughly 6 months ago, abstained from voting. Its crystalline form had turned a dull gray color that indicated shame. After the vote, as the chamber began to clear, the Varathian approached Chen privately. Ambassador, I owe you an apology. I called your ships flying coffins. I was wrong. Chen looked at the alien for a long moment, then nodded. Apology accepted. But understand this, you were not entirely wrong. Our ships are coffins, for our enemies. The Varathian shuddered and floated away quickly. Chen gathered her things and prepared to leave. As she walked toward the exit, the Krell War Minister approached her. A word of warning, Ambassador. The Council fears you now. Fear can become respect, but it can also become hostility. The Jarak High Command gathered in their war room, watching the recordings of their defeat at New Perth with barely controlled rage. Supreme Commander Vektash, leader of the Jarak military, slammed one massive fist against the table. This is impossible, Vektash growled. We lost 18 ships to primitives, humans, the Council's weakest member. How do I explain this to the Dominion? Commander, perhaps we underestimated them, one of his advisors suggested carefully. Their tactics were unlike anything we have encountered before. Vektash turned his burning gaze on the advisor. Underestimated? They have no shields. They have no plasma weapons. They fly metal boxes held together with welds. We lost because our fleet commander was incompetent, nothing more. Then what do you propose? Another advisor asked. We will return with overwhelming force. 300 ships. 10 times what we sent before. We will attack their territory at multiple points simultaneously. Even if their crude tactics work, they cannot defend everywhere at once. We will crush them, take their systems, and restore our honor. 2 months later, the Jarak Armada arrived at the borders of human space. 300 warships divided into 3 fleets, each one targeting a different human colony. It was the largest military operation the Jarak had ever conducted. At Human Fleet Headquarters on the UNS Endeavour, Admiral James Kowalski stared at the tactical display and felt his stomach sink. 300 ships. His entire defensive force numbered 80 vessels, and many of those were still undergoing repairs from the first engagement. How long before they reach our colonies? He asked. First wave will hit New Johannesburg in 6 hours, his tactical officer replied. Second wave targets Kepler Station in 8 hours. Third wave is heading for Rubicon Station in 10 hours. Kowalski studied the map, his weathered face showing no emotion. He had fought in Earth's last major war before humanity joined the Council. He had seen impossible odds before. Get me Captain Okonkwo and all fleet commanders on conference call. Now. 10 minutes later, the faces of humanity's top military officers filled the screens around Kowalski's command center. They all looked grim. They all knew the math. Listen up, Kowalski said without preamble. The Jarak are coming with everything they have. We cannot fight them in open battle. We do not have the numbers. So we are not going to fight fair. We are going to fight smart. He pulled up a new tactical display. I am implementing Operation Hornet's Nest. We divide our fleet into small strike groups. We do not defend fixed positions. We hit and run, we ambush. We mine the approach vectors. We hack their communications. We do everything we learned from guerrilla warfare throughout human history. Captain Okonkwo, her face still showing scars from the battle at New Perth, spoke up. Admiral, guerrilla tactics work when you have places to hide. Space is empty. They will see us coming. No, they will not, Kowalski replied with a tight smile. Because we are going to use everything in our territory as cover. Asteroid fields. Debris zones. The remains of destroyed stations. We know this territory. They do not. That is our advantage. He pointed to different sections of the map. Task Force Alpha, you have New Johannesburg. I want nuclear mines placed along their approach vector. Wait until they are in the middle of the minefield, then detonate everything at once. Task Force Bravo, Kepler Station. You will evacuate the civilian population and then use the station itself as a weapon. Rig it to explode when the enemy fleet arrives. Task Force Charlie, Rubicon Station is different. We hold that position. It sits in the middle of a ship graveyard from the old wars. Hundreds of derelict vessels floating in a debris field. We use them as cover and resupply points. Sir, these tactics, one commander said hesitantly. They are considered dishonorable by galactic standards. Mining, booby traps. Using civilian stations as weapons. Good, Kowalski said flatly. Honor is for people who can afford it. We are fighting for survival. If the Jarek wanted an honorable fight, they should not have attacked civilian colonies. All commanders, you have your orders. Make them pay for every meter of space they take. Dismissed. The first battle happened at New Johannesburg. The Jarek fleet, 100 strong, advanced confidently toward the colony. They expected resistance, but they expected it to be futile. What they did not expect was to fly into a minefield of nuclear weapons. The mines were small, nearly invisible to sensors, and scattered across a massive area of space. The Jarek fleet did not detect them until it was too late. When the mines detonated, the vacuum of space filled with nuclear fire. 30 Jarek ships were destroyed instantly. 20 more were damaged. Before the enemy could recover, human strike groups appeared from behind nearby asteroids. 3 ships at a time, they would fire a devastating volley, then retreat behind cover before the Jarek could return fire effectively. It was not the glorious space battle the Jarek had prepared for. It was an ambush, a massacre from the shadows. At Kepler Station, the Jarek fleet arrived to find the station abandoned. Or so they thought. As they moved in to capture it, investigating why the humans had given it up so easily, the entire station exploded. The humans had turned it into one massive bomb, filled with fuel cells and explosive materials. The blast took out 15 Jarek ships, cowards. The Jarek fleet commander screamed over open channels. Fight us with honor. Face us in open battle. The human response came from Captain Maria Torres of the UNS Retribution. You want honor? You attacked civilian colonies. You killed families, children. Now you want us to follow your rules? No, we fight to win. But the largest battle happened at Rubicon Station. Task Force Charlie, commanded by Captain Okonkwo, had only 15 ships to defend against 100 Jarek vessels. But Okonkwo had something the enemy did not. A massive debris field from an ancient war, filled with the wreckage of hundreds of old ships. The human fleet hid among the debris, using the wrecks as camouflage and as supply depots. They had spent days rigging the larger wrecks with weapons and ammunition stores. When the Jarek fleet arrived, they thought they were fighting 15 ships. They did not realize they were fighting an entire battlefield that the humans had prepared. Okonkwo's tactics were brutal and efficient. Her ships would appear from behind cover, fire, then retreat back into the debris field before the enemy could target them effectively. The Jarek tried to follow, but their beautiful ships were not designed for navigation in such cluttered space. They scraped against debris. They collided with wrecks. The environment itself became a weapon. On the third day of the battle, the Jarek commander made a fatal mistake. Frustrated and angry, he ordered his flagship to pursue the Indomitable deep into the debris field. Okonkwo led him on a chase through the wreckage, always staying just out of range, always visible enough to keep him following. Then she led him straight into a trap. 20 derelict ships, all rigged with explosives, all positioned in a narrow canyon of debris. The Jarek flagship flew into the middle of them before realizing what was happening. Now, Okonkwo said calmly, the explosives detonated. The flagship was torn apart, and in the chaos that followed, Okonkwo did something that the entire galaxy would talk about for years afterward. Boarding teams, go. The Indomitable pulled alongside the dying flagship. Boarding pods launched, magnetic clamps attached, and human marines in powered armor breached the Jarek ship. Most species in the galaxy could not survive in each other's atmospheric environments, but humans in sealed combat suits could go anywhere. The Marines fought their way through the damaged ship, their armor allowing them to move through sections exposed to vacuum, through fires, through toxic atmospheres. They fought through the Jarek defenders and reached the bridge. The Jarek admiral was captured alive. The flagship's command codes were seized, and suddenly, the entire Zarek fleet at Rubicon Station found itself without leadership or coordination. Attention Jarek forces, Okonkwo broadcast on all channels. Your admiral is our prisoner. Your command structure is broken. You can continue fighting and die, or you can retreat. Choose now. The Jarek fleet retreated. For the second time, they had been defeated by the humans they had dismissed as primitive. But this time the defeat was total and humiliating. When the battle reports reached the Jarek High Command, Supreme Commander Vektash stared at the numbers in disbelief. Of 300 ships sent to crush humanity, only 120 had returned. 180 ships destroyed, thousands of Zarek warriors dead, and the humans, with their inferior technology and their 80 ships, had won. Admiral Kowalski stood in his command center, looking at the casualty reports. Humanity had lost 32 ships, nearly 40% of their fleet. But they had won. More importantly, they had survived. "Get me Ambassador Chen," he said quietly. "She needs to know. The Jarek have been defeated, but we paid a heavy price. We need support from the Council. We need allies, because if the Jarek come back a third time, I do not know if we can stop them." Captain Okonkwo sat in the damaged bridge of the Indomitable, staring at the Jarek admiral in the detention cell on her monitor. The alien looked broken, confused, unable to understand how this had happened. "You asked us to fight with honor," Okonkwo said softly to the screen. "But you do not understand. Humans do not fight with honor. We fight with everything we have." 6 months after the Jarek War, Ambassador Chen Wei stood once again in the Galactic Council chamber. But this time everything was different. The representatives who had mocked her before now watched her with respect and, in some cases, fear. The humans were no longer the joke of the galaxy. The council speaker gestured for attention. "We gathered today to formally acknowledge the end of hostilities between the Jarek Dominion and humanity. Supreme Commander Vektash, you may speak." Vektash, the proud Jarek leader, looked diminished now. His military had been shattered. His people's confidence was broken. He spoke slowly, each word clearly painful. "The Jarek Dominion formally requests peace with humanity. We acknowledge our illegal invasion of Council-protected space. We will pay reparations for the colonies we destroyed. And we—" He paused, struggling with the words. "We apologize for underestimating the human species." Chen nodded graciously. "Humanity accepts your apology and your offer of peace. We do not seek to continue this conflict. We never wanted war in the first place." After the formal proceedings, several council representatives approached Chen privately. First was the Lumini who had analyzed human military history. "Ambassador Chen, my government wishes to hire human military advisors. We would like to learn from your tactical experience." Then came a Varathian trade minister. "Our defense contractors want to study human ship designs. We believe there may be practical applications we overlooked." A delegation from 3 smaller species requested meetings about defensive alliances. They had seen what happened when someone attacked human space, and they wanted that protection for themselves. Chen handled each request diplomatically, promising to bring them to her government's attention. But inside she felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Humanity had proven itself, yes, but the cost had been high, too high. That evening, Chen met with Admiral Kowalski and Captain Okonkwo in a secure conference room at the human embassy. Kowalski looked older than he had 6 months ago. The war had aged him. Okonkwo's face bore new scars from the battle at Rubicon Station. "The Council wants our help now," Chen said. "Ships, tactics, advisors. Everyone wants a piece of humanity's military expertise." "Of course they do," Okonkwo said bitterly. "They mocked us until we proved we could kill efficiently. Now we are valuable." "Captain," Kowalski said quietly, "that is not fair. They are scared. Can you blame them? We showed them a type of warfare they thought was extinct. We reminded them that space combat does not have to be clean and elegant. It can be brutal and bloody. Is that what we are now?" Okonkwo asked. "The galaxy's mercenaries? The barbarians they call when they need someone to fight dirty?" Chen and Kowalski exchanged looks. It was a question they had both been struggling with. "We are what we have always been," Chen said finally. "Survivors. Humans who do what is necessary to protect our people. If that means teaching others how to survive too, then maybe that is not such a bad thing. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from Council headquarters. All ambassadors and military commanders were summoned immediately. No explanation given, but the priority code indicated a crisis. When they arrived at the Council chamber 30 minutes later, they found chaos. Every representative was talking at once, and the holographic displays showed something that made Chen's blood run cold. It was a sensor image of the outer galaxy. And approaching from beyond the galactic rim was a fleet, not just any fleet. Thousands of ships, maybe tens of thousands, all of them massive and covered in technology that Council sensors could barely analyze. The Council speaker was trying to restore order. Silence. We must have order. Finally, the chamber quieted. The Krell War Minister, ancient and experienced, spoke into the silence. 6 days ago, our long-range sensors detected this fleet entering our galaxy. They are not from any known species. They are not responding to communications. Their technology is more advanced than anything we have encountered, and based on their trajectory and speed, they will reach Council space in approximately 4 months. What do they want? Someone asked. We do not know, but their behavior suggests hostile intent. They have destroyed 2 automated research stations that were in their path. They did not deviate course. They did not slow down. They simply obliterated the stations and continued forward. The chamber erupted in frightened voices. An invasion from outside the galaxy was the stuff of ancient nightmares. It had never happened in recorded history. The Council speaker raised its voice. We must prepare a defense. We must unite our forces. And we must... It turned to look directly at the human delegation. We must ask for humanity's help. Chen stood up slowly. She could feel every eye in the chamber on her. 6 months ago, these same beings had laughed at human warships. Now they were begging for human expertise. What exactly are you asking? Chen said carefully. The Krell War Minister answered. We want you to lead the defense. Your Admiral Kowalski and Captain Okonkwo have proven their tactical ability. Your ships have proven their resilience. Your species has proven that you understand warfare in ways we have forgotten. We need that understanding now. Kowalski stood up beside Chen. Let me be clear. Our fleet is still recovering from the Jarek War. We lost 40% of our ships. We cannot do this alone. You will not be alone, the Varathian representative said. We will contribute our ships, our resources, our people, but we need your leadership, your tactical knowledge. One by one, the Council members pledged their support. Ships, weapons, materials, personnel. They would provide everything humanity needed. They just needed humans to show them how to win. Chen looked at Kowalski, then at Okonkwo. The captain's expression was unreadable, but she gave a small nod. Humanity accepts, Chen said. We will lead the defense of this galaxy. But we do this on our terms, our tactics, our strategies. No complaints about honor or tradition. If you want us to lead, you follow our methods. Agreed? The Council voted unanimously. For the first time in galactic history, a human would command the combined military forces of the entire Galactic Council. 3 months later, Captain Sarah Okonkwo stood on the bridge of a ship unlike any that had ever existed. It was called the UNS Unity, and it was enormous. The Council had given humanity access to their best technology, and human engineers had built something new. Something that combined the brutal survivability of human design with the advanced capabilities of galactic technology. The ship had human-style layered armor, but it was made from Varathian crystal alloys. It had human-style redundant systems but powered by Lumini energy cores. It had human-style kinetic weapons but enhanced with Krell targeting systems. It was a monster, and Okonkwo loved it. Status report, she said. All systems operational, Admiral, her tactical officer replied. Okonkwo had been promoted after the Jarek War. She was now Admiral Okonkwo, commander of the largest military fleet ever assembled in this galaxy. Behind the Unity, the combined fleet stretched out in formation. Human ships with their distinctive blocky shapes, Varathian crystal vessels, Lumini energy constructs, Krell battleships, ships from 100 species all flying together for the first time. Enemy fleet will be in weapons range in 1 hour, sensors reported. We are reading 15,000 vessels. They are maintaining attack formation. 15,000. Against their 5,000. The odds were not good. But Okonkwo had faced bad odds before. All ships, this is Admiral Okonkwo, she broadcast on all channels. You all know what is at stake. We are fighting for our homes, our families, our entire galaxy. The enemy thinks they can just fly through our space and take what they want. We are going to teach them otherwise." She paused, looking at the alien vessels on her tactical display. Ships that 6 months ago would never have fought alongside humans. Ships whose captains had learned human tactics, studied human history, and accepted that sometimes you had to fight dirty to survive. Remember your training. Remember the tactics we practiced. We do not fight like them. We do not try to be elegant or honorable. We fight like humans. We fight to win. All ships attack Formation Delta. We close to brawling range and we show these invaders what happens when you threaten our home. The fleet moved forward. In the shipyards above Earth, more vessels were under construction, combining human and alien technology in ways that were revolutionizing galactic engineering. In council chambers, human advisors were teaching military strategy to species that had forgotten how to really fight. In academies across the galaxy, young aliens studied human history and learned lessons from Earth's 10,000 years of warfare. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had changed it, and as the two fleets met in the darkness of space, as the battle began that would determine the fate of trillions of lives, one thing was clear. They had mocked humanity's creations. They had laughed at the ugly ships, the primitive tactics, the brutal methods. But when the real threat arrived, when the galaxy needed someone who knew how to fight and win, they had turned to the species they once dismissed. Humanity had changed the game. And now, leading the combined forces of the Galactic Council, they were going to save it. The battle lasted for 3 days. The human tactics worked. The combined fleet fought with a ferocity that surprised the invaders. When it was over, the enemy fleet was broken and retreating. The galaxy was safe.